Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Violet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet B. Rayne. My guest today is Janis King. She's been working with tarot for over 20 years, as well as reading for many thousands of clients across the world. She's written books, been seen on TV and radio, and read for celebrities and even a politician or two. She's a tarot teacher and creator of the Life Code Tarot, an award-winning tarot deck. And she's the author of Tarot, the Life Code, A Fool, a Magician, and The Secret of Life, both designed to teach tarot as a living symbolic system rather than just a set of memorized meanings. Rather than using tarot for fixed predictions, Janis teaches that our future is not fixed, but open to our participation, a complete language in which the cards gain meaning through their relationships with one another. She has an amazing background, so I'm really excited to have her on our show. So welcome, Janis.
Oh, my pleasure. It's lovely to meet you, Violet.
It's lovely to meet you. I love your perspective. What got you on this journey to even start working with tarot? Have you worked with it all your life? Did you have something that drew you to tarot? Share a little bit about your background story.
Yeah, no, I'm in fact, well, my aunt was always very psychic, so I did grow up with card reading, although playing card reading, which is catamancy, and sort of talking to dead people, and we that was not unusual in the family at all. But I really didn't want to do that as a thing. Was a performer, still am, musician, and that's what I wanted to do. And even though I did get told by a couple of people, I went with my mom to a spiritualist church, and they say, "Oh, you need to go into development," and I'm like, no way. I'm not doing that. I don't want to talk to dead people. That's just not my thing. And so every time I was sort of, confronted with opportunities to work in that field, I basically just went, nope. And but I got very interested though in energy. And I got interested in energy in, oh gosh, I mean, it must have been late 80s, so a long time ago. And I was working with a singing teacher who gave me a cassette tape called The Stuff. She said, I don't know what it's called, I just call it The Stuff. And it had a meditation visualization technique on it. And it was like somebody just went click with a switch. And it was like, oh my God, the top of my head came off. It was like, I'd never meditated. The term manifestation had not been coined, and I had no context for this at all. Just a cassette tape with a thing that takes you into this, state. And I was fascinated, and it changed everything. Then I spent the next few couple of decades, even maybe, trying to figure out how to get more control over it. Because very definitely stuff was happening, very definitely. But I couldn't work out why I couldn't make it stick. And it was frustrating. And it was before the internet, and I had no idea. I was just experimenting with it. So then I came to a point where I decided on this big calling experiment. I would call this big experiment, and I would put all of what I had learned by myself pretty much to the test. And I did this thing and it went like a forest fire. It was amazing. And then 18 months, it took me that close and then it crashed like a stone. It was like, and my entire life went with it. Everything went. My career, my marriage, my house, my everything went. And I was trying at the time to reach my guides, who were nowhere to be seen or found. And I had really thought, well, you know what? They've obviously had enough of me, and who could blame them? Because, why would they want to hang around? But I was really angry about this. And, like when people get angry when they lose their faith and they're furious, that it's like it's for some big practical joke. Maybe I was delusional. But I carried on meditating because I'd got quite into meditation over the last decade. And I did this meditation where this little boy, to reach my guides, and in the meditation, this little boy ran out of the woods and handed me a white stone egg. And I said, "Oh, are you a guide?" And he just went, "No." Okay. So handed me this white stone egg, and on the white stone egg was carved a sleeping white bird. And I just went, "Oh, it's a white dove." And he just went, "Yes," and nodded his head really enthusiastic and ran away. And then I got crickets again. I got nothing. I have no idea what's going on now, until I went to Camden Market about 3 weeks later, and I saw this shop up on the higher level, and it said tarot readings in the window. And I thought, well, you know what? In the absence of all other information, maybe a tarot reading will give me some information because I ain't got none. So I went up and there was guys sitting at the desk. And I said, "Excuse me, I'd like to inquire about a tarot reading." And he said, and he pointed to another guy who was there with long white hair and long white robes, looking like a kind of hippie Jesus guy. And he sat and he said, "You need to speak to White Dove." And I went, "Oh, I think I probably do then need to speak to White Dove." And White Dove explained to me that I was being moved to a new path because of what I'd asked for. And I said, "No, I absolutely refuse. You can take the whole thing back. Tell them they can't get in my life with a wrecking ball. Like, this is not happening. I refuse. I refuse. It's not going to happen. I've said no before. I'm saying no again. It's no." And he went, "Yeah, see, that ship has sailed. That's not going to happen." So um, so he told me I'd got 3 years. It was like a dark night of the soul for about 3 years while my life and me was being systematically taken apart and put back together. The reading was very detailed and it made sense of everything that had happened. It did stop me being angry, but nevertheless. And but I was fascinated with this tarot-y thing, you see. I thought, how interesting is that? Maybe I should find out more.
I love that. I love that story because it really aligns with my story because they took me through a 3 year dark night of the soul journey too, is and I never thought about them deassembling and reassembling my life, but that's exactly what happened. I kept forcing, and I'm sure you did too. I kept trying to go back to what was. I kept trying to dip my toe back into where I had been to rebuild, and nothing worked. Like, no job interview came through. I couldn't find a job in my old career. Nothing worked. And I just felt like I was banging my head most of the time. And it was like, nope, you're not going back. You prayed for this. You asked for this. You're going
Yeah,
forward. You're not going back.
yeah,
Right. And back is where we're comfortable because we know how to do it. And forward, we don't always know what's around that corner. So I love that story because I definitely experienced that as well. I
yeah,
love your approach with tarot because it's not about memorizing. It's a beautiful, sacred ancient, powerful system of tarot. And everybody, there's lots of different styles and approaches and how people connect with it. Share a little bit how tarot has evolved for you and how you see it.
Yeah. And it really aligns, this really aligns with what you were saying just before we went live on the call about bringing the sort of the metaphysical into the grounded every day. And that's really absolutely front and center of how I practice tarot and how I want to communicate tarot. Because in my communication with spirit, our job, those of us who are trying to practice and teach and do the work we do, our job is to try and align, the spirit realm and earth. We're trying to bring them closer together. We're trying to raise vibration. We're trying to make people happier, because happier people live better lives, which then also makes the world a better place. And it's all a big ball of wool, but we have hold of a string of it. And so for me, I'm very keen that tarot is boots on the ground. And so I don't like it when we're trying to memorize tarot one card at a time, because that strips it of its power. But neither do we want to say that we don't have to learn it. So we do have to learn it, but it's how we learn it. And I know a lot of people come to tarot, and I did a workshop a couple of days ago where one of the people on the workshop said, yes, well, I just want to intuit the cards. That's how I read. I just read by intuiting. Well, you may do. But the cards are set in sequence for a reason, because they tell a story, and they tell a story of lived experience. And so when we connect with the story, each individual card gives you a facet of the story. When we connect with the story, we're connecting with a part of ourselves that has lived that experience. And what happens then is we connect in emotionally, which means we feel the cards and we feel what they want, because we've lived it and we know what we want. And we know, because we're empathic humans, we feel what's right. We feel what's necessary. Now, when we learn like that, we don't have to learn 10 cards or 20 cards or whatever we don't have to learn them one at a time. What we're doing is we're learning them in context to each other. And then we don't have to actually learn them, right? Because we already know. We just have to, it's like a picture book. So when we felt what we're looking at, we don't have to learn it, do we? It's a question of feeling what we're looking at. And this particular student shared with me how she might interpret a particular card. And what I said to her was that when you're going into a tarot reading and you don't understand what the card wants, it's not about meanings. Meanings are dry and meaningless. Meanings mean nothing or very little. We have to know what the card is asking us for, what the card wants the relationship with us to be. So if we're looking at a card like the Fool, for instance, which is a big archetypal tarot card, it's card 0. It's asking us to understand that when we do this act, if we're going to jump the leap of faith that the Fool wants to make, that we should jump innocent of knowledge, both fear and expectation. And what it's giving us is an opportunity to explore all the potentials of the situation and know that we're going to have to figure it out as we go. But if we jump with an expectation of a result, whether it be fear or it's going to be amazing, then we're going to crash for sure. And so what the Fool wants us to do is this thing. And we have a choice. And so when we look at it like that, when we look at our relationship to the card and we feel it, Now, all of a sudden, when that card comes up in a reading for a client or for ourselves, we have a baseline understanding with a personal connection. Now, that's when our intuition is free to start adding some extra stuff, because our intuition is a thought that doesn't belong. But when you're trying to intuit, you can't try and intuit. Like, and every time I say this, well, I intuit, I say, no, you don't, because you don't understand what the card really means. So you're looking for what makes sense to you. And when you're looking for what makes sense to you, you're not intuiting, because intuition doesn't make sense. Because when intuition comes in, it comes in from left field, and it's like a thought that doesn't belong. It just comes in, and it adds something that you don't know. And for that, if we can have an emotional connection, it's the emotional connection, because tarot is connective. When we have that emotional connection and we're confident, we don't have to think about the card, we already know the baseline, then that's when everything else we can set everything else free. That's my
I love that.
long-winded.
I love that. I also understand in reading your information too that we have to be responsible. It doesn't just flow. We have to be part of the moving forward. We have to take action. A
Yes.
lot of people don't understand that life requires us to be accountable and responsible
Yeah.
and move forward. We have to take those steps. It's like the person that sits at home and says, "Oh, I want true love," and he's going to come and knock on my door. No, it doesn't happen that way. You
No.
have to take actions towards receiving that or lining with that or being in alignment. It doesn't happen. The universe requires us to be part of the story and do our own work to get whatever we're looking for, what we're trying to attract in. And I read in your bio and your information in here about us taking action when we're working. And you also talk about it's not about predicting the future, right? It's not predictive. So share with us some of those concepts that you share with your students and your clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tarot is very good at predicting. Okay. Now we know this. We know that tarot can look forward on the timeline just as it can look behind on the timeline, and it can look into the present and figure out what we can't see. We know this. But the fact is, the way I have come to understand it is that when it's predicting us. So we are very predictable, because most of what happens with us is happening on automatic pilot, right? So what we've been learned, our patterns, whatever is going on with us, we are pretty much already set on what we are habitually going to do. So tarot, being like a super sort of AI computer, will go, well, that's what you're most likely to do. This is what this person, all of this together will create this result. So this is what we're predicting. Then what we do is we go, well, okay, this is the potential that is most likely to happen. What choices do I have now? I can't control what's going on around me. I can't control other people's patterns, but maybe I can control my own. Maybe I can look at my own choices and what I can do. So when we start questioning tarot intelligently, asking good questions about the way forward and what is in our way, and how, this goal that I have, what is your guidance on that goal? Is that a goal that's going to be a positive way for me to move forward? Or is there something I'm not seeing here? And how can I best dance with the energy to get the best result for me and those that I love?
I love that answer. You know, we forget sometimes that we have free will. And we were talking about this in class this weekend of, you know, you go to a doctor's appointment and they give you a diagnosis. There are a few people out there that go, I don't accept that. That's not my future. And you think about it, and people are like, well, you can't do that. Yes, you can. You are a creator manifester. And even when somebody gives you a possibility of an outcome, it gives you an opportunity to go, I'm changing the path. I'm shifting my actions, my thoughts, my emotions to go a different way. And we're all allowed to do that, right? But
Mm.
most of the time, and I'm sure you've seen this, we do patterns and cycles and we keep repeating things until that person goes, nope, I'm done with that cycle. I'm done with that pattern. I'm not going to do that next. I'm not going to do that again. And then you shift to a whole different reality and possibility for your future. You know, even if a card says, and I've done this before, so I'll share with you. I went to a reader once and I said, tell me what my year's going to be like. She
Mm.
pulled out cards and laid them out. When she got done, I said, I appreciate your insight. I don't accept that as my outcome. I'll be back in 2 months and we're going to do this again. Right? Because my energy at that time was leading that way.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it showed me what it could be. And I said, nope, nope, nope. And I came back 2 months later or a month later, I forget when. I said, okay, lay them out again. And it was completely different because I had shift my actions and thoughts to a whole different reality. So those listening, keep that in mind. We have free will, free choice to
Mm.
change things anytime, but tarot is a great tool because
Mm.
it can show us things that we haven't thought about too.
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah.
am I not considering? What am I not thinking about? What is not in my field that I don't know that I need to know, right? Tarot can give us those insights because it's really magical and powerful when you utilize it that way
Yeah.
versus am I going to be rich? Am I going to fall in love? Am I, you know, we get all those questions. I'm sure you do too. Am I, and I'm
Yeah.
like, why don't we find out what we need today? What's
Yeah, I
practical?
mean, I refuse to answer when clients come to me and ask me those questions. I just go, no. So you were just going to reframe that question. I'm not actually going to ask that question. I'm just not going to ask it because if I get a no, no, you're not going to be rich. No, sorry, no, no. Yeah, thanks. Next. I'm not going to do that because if you do that to somebody, then you've just taken a sledgehammer to their life. You're not going to do that. We're not going to ask that question. What we're going to say is, I want to be rich. What do I need to know?
All right. What do I need
Do
to
that.
do? What
Yeah.
actions do I need to take? Right.
Yeah.
Because we have all the possibilities. You can be whatever you want. You can attract in whatever you want if you're in the right energetic frequency to do that, which means mind, heart, soul, the whole thing.
Mm.
We can have exactly what we want. So,
Yeah.
I love how you talk about how tarot connects us to the energetic world and why that's useful. So, share a
Mm.
little bit more about that as I get my voice back this morning.
Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, well, it's useful because we're all doing it all the time anyway. And so we may as well lean in. So we all have an intuitive sense of some degree. We all do. We all feel a thing. And 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 when listen, this is completely down to choice, and a lot of people make a perfectly good job of life without giving a second thought to their intuition or the energetic world or whatever. It's fine, they're very calm about their life. But for those of us who are maybe seekers, or those who are maybe not so sure as to the right way of things, or why things don't work the way they want them to, or whatever. Aligning ourselves to building our relationship with our own sat nav, our own connection, I think is not only fascinating, because it is fascinating, but it also gives you a different view of how life is done. And I mean, when I grew up with this really powerful sense of confusion. And I just thought everybody else knows a thing. I don't know how they know it. I have no idea where because there was no internet anyway in those days. But these people that go through life, and they how do they know this? How do they know to do this? And I felt really in the weeds with what the way forward was. And for me, that then brought about my own seeking, my own search. And when I connected energetically that day with the cassette tape, it was like being plugged in. It was like somebody had picked up my plug and put it in the wall. It's like, whoa, what's that? What's going on there? And I found that I was able to influence things, but getting control of it was another matter entirely, right? It was a whole other ball game. But when we can live in harmony with our intuitive sense, with the energy that surrounds us, when we can fine-tune our own energy so that we're in alignment with the life that we actually want to lead, we can get much more grounded, and we just be happier, honestly. I mean, bottom line, that's what I think fuels us all. We want to be happier. We certainly don't want to be less happy. So all of us, and in my work in tarot, we have the 4 earth elements, don't we? We have cups, wands, swords, and pentacles. And cups, I teach, is at the root of everything. That is what fuels us. Our desire for happiness and connection is at the root of almost every single action we take. Even if it's, I need to go to the shop to buy a loaf of bread. Why do you want to do that? Because not having a loaf of bread will not make me happy. So I am going to get up and go out in the rain and get a loaf of bread, because it will make me happier to have it than not have it. And on a very basic level, every decision we make is fueled by that urge. So happiness and connection is in our DNA, and our sat nav tells us whether we're moving in the right direction towards it or not. And it can warn us of things. I had a very weird experience. I mean, it happens. My guys are very they're very laconic, and I don't hear them or in an auditory way very often, but very, very rarely they'll chime in just spontaneously. And I was traveling back from London late one night, coming round a sort of, one-way system, like a gyratory system. And as I was pulling off into the outside lane, because I had to feed right, I'd done this journey 100 times. All of a sudden, this voice just said, before I took the slip road, this voice said in a sort of slightly bored way, you might want to pull into the middle lane, because someone's going to leave it really late to pull in, and they could easily just pull in front of you. I'd just move into the middle lane if I, and within a nanosecond of that happening, a car screeched in front of me, tried to take the turn, took it too tight and ended up diagonally stopped in the road in front of me. And it was only because I'd heard this voice, I'd instinctively backed off on the accelerator and just shifted my position in the road a little. Otherwise, I would have hit them side on. And my response was a little more warning, guys. I mean, really, I could have done with a bit more notice. But you know, when you're in tune, when you're connected, it's not under my control. I can't summon that, right? But it when it happens, and it happens clearly, it's a good thing to have, right?
It saves us a lot when we listen, right?
Yeah.
We really do listen, because sometimes I get those subtle things of, oh, maybe go left, go right, right? We get those little urges, and paying attention to that throughout my life has really kept me safe, right? Yeah. And I'm always thankful when I just miss something like an accident or something, and I'm like, thank you for protecting me, looking out after me, right? Because I believe they are, in lots of cases, kind of guiding us, nudging us in the right way. And I think that's so important. So, Janice, how do we use tarot in practical ways for ourselves, or just understand how it can be used? Because I believe that it can help us always in very practical ways to bring it down. Like we said earlier, that spiritual etheric down into the physical earth reality. Share with us a little bit your experience with tarot and how it can be so practical for us.
Yeah. So what I would like more people to do, and this is what I teach, and everybody looks at me like I'm nutty, like they look at me like, what the hell? That's not what. When Especially when we begin and we're reading for ourselves, especially, tarot is a system. So we have 4 suits, we have 4 lots of ace to 10, we have the royals, 4 in each suit, and then we have our major arcana. And so when we connect with that, and in the book that you were talking about, I talk about this system. When we look at tarot as a complete system, instead of taking individual cards and trying to work out what they mean for us in answer to our question, we can actually use the mechanism of tarot to do a reading for ourselves, which also connects us further in. So what do I mean by that? So let's say I call it the magician's map, right? So in my system, we connect the major arcana into each suit. So the Fool and the Magician, which is, as I said, the Fool and the Magician and the Secret of Life, we take them and we put them up the top because they are the energetic practitioners. And then we split the major arcana up into 4 separate suit realms. So the High Priestess to the Lovers advises very specifically on the suit of cups, ace to 10 run. The Chariot to Justice advises very specifically on the suit of wands. The Hanged Man to the Tower on the suit of swords, and the Star to the World on the suit of pentacles. And what we do is we can lay out, if we take one card, so one minor arcana card in the ace to 10 section, and we put it down on the table, and then we let that populate the reading. We don't take any more cards. So let's say you draw the 5 of Pentacles. Let's just say you're not going to draw the 5 of Pentacles, but let's just say you do. You draw the 5 of Pentacles, you put it on the table, and then what you do is you put the 6 and the 7 to the right, because that's where you're going. You're going to put the 4 and the 3 to the left, because that's where you've been. And then if you look at the grid, you'll see which, in the 4, it will be the Knight. So the Knight of Pentacles goes at the top. And then coming down here, as we've got the 4, we're going to be looking at, I think from memory, we're looking at the moon. Yeah, we're looking at the moon as our primary guidance card. And that will say, then the rest of the majors form an arrow underneath. This one is support, this one is future guidance. So this system where we use a particular royal, we need it to be the knight that's going to power us through the 5. It's a tough energy. We need that knight. And we're going to learn how this whole thing works together. It is absolutely perfect. It is never off base. It is always absolutely spot on for everyone. And that is just taking one card and allowing tarot to populate the rest of the system. Now, not only is this a remarkably accurate and fantastically useful reading, because it tells you the energy in which you need to proceed, it tells you what your next 2 steps are, and it tells you how to support yourself in the process and guidance about your next 2 steps. So it gives you the whole package.
I love that.
Yeah. And tarot does it for us. We don't have to do loads of stuff. If we do that, also, it's a fantastic way to learn. Because we're learning the majors, we're learning this section of the minors, and we're learning the royal that is influencing, that we need to adopt in order to move through this energy. And I've demonstrated it on lots of workshops, and it is absolutely perfect every time. And just phenomenal. So as I say, I call this the magician's map. So this is the one minor card is your I am here on the map. This is where I am. Stick a pin in it, and tarot will go, oh, okay, I've got you. Right. So you're heading here. You've been down this road. You don't need to do that anymore. You're heading here, but nevertheless, you can see where you've got to. You can see why you're here. This is where you're going next. This is your speed limit. This is how you should drive. This is how you should move ahead. And this is what you need to take with you for the journey. And this is how you're going to best move through this thing. This is your guidance. It's remarkable. Tarot as a system is phenomenal. And that's boots on the ground, practical readings that are guided by the energy of tarot itself.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to have to check out the Magician's Map now. I'll be on Amazon buying the book so I can check that out. I love all of that. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on here today, but share with our community. We'll have your website on the video and in the descriptors, but share with us some of the things that you offer online and in person so that our audience knows how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously I offer one-to-one readings through Zoom. Tarot doesn't need a physical body, so I read for people all over the world. So Zoom readings are available. I obviously 101 workshops, mastery workshops. I have a membership. And I'd like to maybe send you a link to a little ebook that people can have a look at if they want to. Gives you a quick whistle-stop tour through how to approach tarot. If you haven't looked at it before, it's a place to start. But my website is Janis King, that's Janis, as in Joplin, janisking.uk, and you can find everything there.
I love that. Thank you so much. And yes, send me the link and I will definitely add it in the descriptor so that people can go and download that. But thank you for taking the time to join us today.
That's all right. That's my absolute pleasure. And it was so lovely to meet you.
It was lovely to meet you too. And those listening, we got to hear her sacred magic of how she uses tarot. I hope you find your sacred magic this week and how you use it. And I hope you're gifted with many blessings. Thanks for listening. Make sure you comment, follow, and like us on your favorite channels. And we hope to see you back here again in the near future.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you loved the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.